All right, party people, we're getting pretty close to the end of 2024, going into 2025. Just recently did a podcast talking about TNA's big 2024 and the fact that they stepped it up in many areas and they had the one little downtime in maybe March, April that was eh. But other than that, really firing on all cylinders. Now they end every year taking a break, which is cool for me because I actually enjoy the break as well. But, they did their awards, their award shows, and I mean, as someone I trust me, even though I give this company a hard time, I love the company like all of you do, but, man, do I not care about those awards. And every year they just they're it just seems, more and more that the fan vote doesn't count. Um, I I know Mike already did a podcast talking about this, but, Mustafa Ali winning the X Division 1, who hasn't wrestled in the fucking company for half the year. Uh, Spitfire winning the tag team titles is, I mean, that's to me the worst since they brought these titles back. That is the worst tag team that they've had. They kind of win it by default because there's no one in the division. They're multiple time tag team champions. But I mean, are you really going to tell me that uh, Spitfire was more impactful on the division this year than MK Ultra? I know MK Ultra was only around for a few months going into this year, but if you're going to give Mustafa Ali the X Division 1, I think you can I think you can justify MK Ultra. I'm sorry. I know that they were probably only a team. They didn't even make it to half the year. Um, it was probably a third of the year, but I mean, still, they're just I care more about their run than Spitfires by far. And I would have even put Alicia and Masha ahead of them. So, they're in there. What was it? The other award? Oh, match of the year, Masha and Jordan. That's a stretch. Like it was an excellent match. I am not discounting it, but you're gonna tell me that that was better than Mike Bailey and Zach Wentz, and I don't even like that style of wrestling, the freaking flippity doodah. But that was the best match of the year. And even if I go back and really look at the matches, I'm pretty sure I could find a few that were better than that one. So I don't know. Leon Slater got the one to watch for. That is the most cursed award in TNA. Kylan King got it, was out for the year. I think I don't remember who got it the year prior to that, but then I think prior to that was like Bhupinder Gujar, who they did nothing with. And then it was like Willie Mack. I mean, it is horror. They really just need to get rid of that award. But other than that, it's whatever. They take a couple weeks off at the end of the year and seemingly lose a lot of the momentum that they have coming out of 2024, coming out of the year, we should say. I mean, we I say we, a lot of the fans, myself, we destroyed them at the end of 2023 for how much momentum they lost after announcing the rebrand of TNA. Now they started picking it up about second week of December, and social media marketing was on point, and good things were happening, and people were getting excited for Hard to Kill. There unfortunately is not that same buzz about Genesis, and I mean they do have a few weeks of, I guess they're in Atlanta, of tapings that will hopefully get us there. So we will see if that's the case. So I've got 5 resolutions, and these aren't like in the past. I'd be like fix production quality, fix the knockouts. I mean, this is a little deeper than that. The 5 that I've come up with here, and the first one is don't settle. And what do I mean by don't settle? It means that they've done a much better job of this year. But in the past, to put this in context, they would have some kind of marketing campaign or storyline playing out on TV or whatever it is, and they would get a lot of coverage from it and a lot of buzz, and then it would just die off. It was like they just never knew. What I mean by that is they never knew how to capitalize on something. They would have people talking for a period of 1 or 2 months, and then they're just like, okay, now we don't know what to do, and then it's dead, and they're kind of like back to normal. 2024, there was a big step up. I think the buzz kept. I say buzz is a strong word because I'm not saying TNA was on the tip of everyone's tongues of all for all of 2024, but the momentum was there. Every time they did something good, they kind of found a way to keep it going. And I'm going to repeat myself again. There was just the step backwards Orlando tapings. That was it. But other than that, the ball kept rolling. So when I say don't settle, continue that. Continue that momentum, but want more. Because that was what I said a lot of the time under Scott Demore's watch was this company is very uh, content with where they are. The last several years, the shows always came off. We're content. We're content. I want them to come off like I want more. I want more. I'm hungry. I want to keep getting better. So don't settle. Don't be so comfortable that hey, we're doing good things that you don't want to continue to be better. You don't want to continue to improve the areas that you have improved. And they've improved audio, video, social media. There's strong those are very very important areas. Those are the three most important to me personally. They've and they increased social media chatter. That was something, especially when I first started podcasting, no one was talking about TNA. I mean, it was like, LOL TNA was very, very strong. It was the company was irrelevant. They were for the majority of the time that I have been podcasting. This year they were very relevant. And I want them to build on that. I want them to remain hungry and don't just say, okay, we're doing this good. We're good now. No, we're doing this good. Let's be better. Let's improve. You can always freaking improve. Always. You think the Boston Celtics, they won the championship and they're like, okay, we're good. No, they were like, how do we get better next year too? Have that mentality. Number two is trust your people. Trust your people means trust your Steve Macklins, trust your Masha Slamoviches, trust the people that are your homegrowns, the people who are there long term, the people who aren't just there for 6 months, there for a year. Trust them to carry your company. Trust them to have more prominent roles. Because with all the goodwill and everything that I can't say enough. 2024 was a good year, but there is still that vibe of, hey, this guy left WWE or this girl left WWE. They're going to come in and win our titles. And they might even do that with, when they start getting a few more AEW departures. But historically with this company, they bring in people that we'll call them part-timers, the handshakers, and they come in and everyone takes a step backwards. Every time we think it's okay, Steve Macklin's getting there, he has to take a step backwards because they're bringing in these people that used to wrestle in WWE or whatever company. And even I look at Masha Slamovich here, and I'm not going to say Tessa Blanchard is more a TNA homegrown than she is anything else. Don't get me wrong. But can you tell me that past Rebellion, Masha's still going to be the Knockouts champion? I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to bring Tessa Blanchard in. She's going to have her little program with Jordan Grace, and then she's going to win the fucking title. And then Masha's going to go back to what she was doing. That's kind of what my gut tells me is going to happen. That one is not as egregious because Tessa really is an Impact person, if you really want to be honest about it. But there's still just that feeling too many times. Mustafa Ali came in, wins X Division championship first night in the company. Ultimately loses the Mike Bailey and what was not a good match. and then loses one more time, and it's a Nick Nemeth who's not even. I still don't really consider a TNA guy. I don't think we see him past Rebellion personally. If he's there, awesome. But yeah, man, trust your guys. You brought in, Kushida. Oh, he was in New Japan, and then you try to put the X Division Championship on him as quick as possible. Like, I do get that. I do get when someone has buzz from another company that you want to, put a title on them. But if those wrestlers are those big of names and have that much buzz behind them, just bring them in and do engaging storylines with them. But still, still let your titles revolve around the people that you're invested in and the people investing in you. You know what I mean? Like Eddie Edwards has been invested in this company forever. And with the exception of him winning the tag team titles 9 times this year, and remove the Wolves portion of it. I'm talking about Eddie Edwards' solo run. For as long as he's been in, you're talking about 2 short world title runs. Like one, I think he had the X Division title for a little bit. I mean, you would just think he'd be a little bit more decorated as a solo wrestler. I mean, Rosemary, who's been here forever, how many titles does she have? One knockouts run, and she won the knockouts titles like 3 times because the champions that were currently there were leaving. So I just want to see a little bit more of investment in the people who want to be there and the people who have been there, and just stop bringing in people and having them completely change everything. Because the problem is, and I've been saying this the last couple months, and this was more of a Scott thing. I don't imagine this current regime is going to do that, but you bring in these bigger names, and part of, hey, we're going to pay you a lot is we're promising you titles and things like that, and promising creative. And that's going to get into my next one, and that's book organically. 2024 was not a good creative year for TNA. It was a good year in many other areas. The wrestling was great, but creatively, that was probably the biggest hole. And part of it was changeover because you've got your head of creative being fired, and you don't really have you're kind of booking by committee, and that's part of it. But the other part is that too many promises were made to too many people about you're going to hold championships. You know, I don't remember exactly when Alex Shelley won. I think it was the end of I think it was like mid 2023, but that's just an example. Him and Chris Sabin like forcing title runs on him at the end, forcing the title onto Nick Nemeth when no one really wanted to see it, forcing the title on the PCO, the Digital Media Championship, when AJ Francis was doing such good things with that belt because you promised him a title when he re-signed, promised him the world title, but you couldn't possibly put it on him. So you're making too many promises. And I say it all the time. Mike Santana was promised too. I can guarantee you. You make all these promises, and now Joe Hendry's getting buzz, and some of these other wrestlers are starting to come up a little, and they just can't crack the rotation. You understand what I'm saying? If you book organically, you can go from week to month and be like, yo, this person is getting over. Let's get them. Let's get this belt on him. It's going to be very interesting to see because Ace Austin right now, I think is organically really, really going to get over because of the Chris Bay stuff. When I think it's pretty clear they want to put the X Division Championship on Leon Slater. So that's going to be really interesting to see if they just stay the course. Because that was always my thing with Scott. This motherfucker stays the course. And when you stay the course, you can't roll with the punches. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes this title off of Moose. It should be Ace Austin after a relatively lengthy dominant run by Moose. But they want to put it on Leon Slater. They want to put the world title on Mike Santana, but they have to give Joe Hendry a title run now. That's why I really question Joe Hendry's title run when he eventually gets it. I just don't see it past Rebellion. I see it being one of the shortest reigns. Probably not as short as Steve Macklin, but I think it's gonna be one of the shorter title runs. So there's just too much. There's too many outside factors that come into play. You need to be in a position of power. Right now, too many of the wrestlers are in positions of power. I think that's the best way that I can summarize it. And it's hard to be a when you're not a destination company. The destination companies are WWE, AEW. That's where the majority of the wrestlers want to go. So those companies can have a lot of power over the wrestlers. TNA is not in a position like that. They're in a position of, I picture Scott Demore at times on his knees begging people to sign. You know, we're not excuse me, but we're not far off from that. I think there's a lot of convincing that has to happen. And I really hope that in 2025 they can be in more of a position of power because when you're convincing people, then you have to say, hey, well, I promise you'll do this. I promise you'll do that. I promise you won't, you know, you'll only lose once or twice. I promise this and this. You know what I'm saying? So book organically. Number three, tell me a story. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about creative, but this stems really back to further than 2024, 2023, maybe even the end of 2022. The company's deciding we're getting behind babyface Josh Alexander. We're getting behind speedball Mike Bailey, which is great because those are guys more homegrown, which is, what we want to see. But the problem is Mike Bailey, zero charisma, negative charisma. Worst promo in the entire company. Worse than Jody Threat, worse than babyface Alicia Edwards. Awful. Okay. Josh Alexander was not a bad promo. He was a bad babyface promo. He's not a bad heel promo. And I say he's a bad babyface promo because it's like Nick Nemeth. I don't even think he's a good promo. He comes out, says the same thing every single time. I'm going to steal the show. I'm one of the best in the world. It's the same shit every single time. That's kind of what Josh Alexander was. So now you've got these two people kind of at the top who didn't have a lot of personality. It's pretty difficult to write storylines for a guy dressed like an amateur wrestler and a guy dressed like someone from Cobra Kai. It can be difficult to write for these kind of guys. So it just seemed like when those guys were the forefront, when those guys were the champions, they doubled down on, hey, we're going to be indie. We're going to put on really good matches, like what AEW does. We're just going to have good matches. Josh Alexander had multiple matches wrestling for at least 45 minutes, 45 to an hour. Same with Mike Bailey. And the stories just started becoming less and less because you didn't have people who you could creatively write for, you know? So this year I want him to tell me a story. And this ties into what I just said about booking organically. They really struggled to book organically in 2024. And how can you tell stories? How can you write storylines when it's like, okay, we got to get this guy over, but we promised this guy this and this. How can that happen? Vince McMahon promised all sorts of shit to people. You hear these wrestlers get on podcasts. Bad News Brian, I was promised the world title. Jake the Snake, I was promised the world title. The list, frankly, goes on and on. Okay, I think Tito Santana was promised the world title at one point, but then they went to Bret Hart. Okay, Vince McMahon didn't give a shit. Vince is like, you know what? Change of plans. We are not staying the course. That's not going to work. Mustafa Ali just dropped a podcast with Chris Van Vliet. Not just last week or the week before, saying I was supposed to win Money in the Bank, and on my way out to the ring, they said, "Hey, change of plans." So those things tie together. Booking organically, tell me a story, but be in a position of power. Maybe that should have been a resolution, but that kind of ties those things in together. Be in a position of power. Don't put the wrestlers in the position of power. But the fans have been asking for storylines. With all the good things that they are doing, and we're all excited about the TV deals, and in Canada, and the attendance and the pay-per-view buys. We're excited about these things, but even with that being said, the fans are still telling you, TNA, we want storylines, we want engaging storylines, we want something we can sink our teeth into, something that gives us a reason to want to watch. I'm pretty sure this Genesis pay-per-view is going to be another one built off just having great matches because they've got like 2 or 3 weeks to put stories together. That's like TNA Plus. TNA Plus matches, though, shows have, they throw excuses for stories together in 2 weeks, and that's what Genesis is going to be because there's huge changeover with the company. Hard to Kill was like that. There was a lot of buzz for Hard to Kill because it was the rebrand of TNA, but if it was an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, they wouldn't have had that. The TNA rebranding saved that show because they were just throwing shit out there. And they did a much better job with Final Resolution this year, but Final Resolution last year was just they were just throwing matches out there. You might be able to get away with that to an extent with the AEW audience, with the TNA audience. People like TNA because it's a balance between good wrestling and good creative. I mean, am I wrong in that? Would you say that the majority of the people who like this company want to see a little bit of both? Where, a lot of WWE fans really like creative. Not to say it's good, but, a lot of AEW fans really just like the wrestling. TNA is a nice balance. That's why I haven't gone anywhere. That's why TNA, even when I complain about it, has not totally pushed me away because they've given me enough of the balance of the two that I watch. I stopped watching WWE in about 2015. I watched some of the pay-per-views. That's about it. I stopped watching AEW right around when they got rid of CM Punk. I was always on and off with Ring of Honor. I'm on and off with NWA. Are there any other companies? I watched New Japan for about 3 months out of my life. That was right around the time I stopped watching WWE. TNA is the one that's kept me around because it's given me a little bit of everything. But we are definitely getting away from good stories right now because you're too concerned with giving us good matches. And I think some of the signings too, Kushida, what the hell storylines you going to do with Kushida? But besides him trying to find the antidote. Jonathan Gresham, what kind of storylines are you going to do with him? You tried one and it flopped. It bombed huge, major fucking bomb that they had to completely abandon it. Trent 7, what fucking story are you going to tell with Trent I'll have a number 7. So bring in guys that you can write for. Like you can write for Alan Angels, I think, who's pictured here. I know he's injured at the moment. I think you can write for Alan Angels. Bring in guys you can write for. I think that's a lot of the reason I've been down on like the Spitfire tag team is because like, what can you write for them? Nothing. When they brought in Jody Thread, I was like, what fucking kind of signing is this? Seemed like Scott D'Amore was like, oh, I like her. She wrestled for me in Border City or whatever the hell. I don't even know. Maybe she did, but it was just like, what can you write for her? You can write for Heather by Elegance. The babyface Heather, not so much. But this, since you put her into the storyline, clearly you can write for her. You could write for Giselle Shaw. You understand? There's a difference. So bring people in that you can write for. Savannah Evans is one I don't know that you can write for. You brought her in for about 2 episodes and then she's gone again. They try to repackage her, and she's supposed to have this little angle with Xia Li, or whatever her name is now. I'm sorry. I don't mean whatever. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to her name. I just have a hard time remembering it. Lei Jing Li, is that what it is? That's another one. How are you going to write for her? So I just want to see more signings of people that you look at and be like, yo, I can write creative. I can put this person in a storyline and it'll be engaging. Stop trying to bring in people just because they're good wrestlers. And number 5, be contrarian. One of the things that stood out about TNA in the very beginning is that they wanted to just put their own spin on wrestling. They wanted to take chances. I mean, you can go back to the fucking storyline of the knockouts where Tara had the tarantula. Someone got a tarantula. Someone got a knockouts title with the boxes and stuff. You just look back at that stuff and you're just like, man, they were just, some of it was bad, some of it was good, but they just took chances. But as time passes, It's becoming more of we see WWE do this, we see AEW do this, so we're going to copy it. But you can never, when you copy something, it's never as good as the original. And yeah, maybe they've improved on it a little bit, but there's still too much of it. Even like the Gia Miller interview, I pointed this out. Maybe this is a very minor, minor example, but she does the interview and then they show her standing there for like a goof for about 5 seconds as the wrestler walks away because WWE does that. So they say, you know, why can't she say, okay, guys, back to you? Does anyone do that? Any other company like the other backstage? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't. In my head, I don't picture that. I don't feel I've heard that. Why can't Jim Miller say, "All right, guys, there you have it, back to you," and treat it like a real interview? But instead, you're like, "Let me do this. Let me do a WWE style interview." Um, Especially the standing there, my guess at this time, and then they step in from 2 feet away. When I first started podcasting, they were on Pop TV, and I couldn't. I've explained this before. I couldn't really follow the Destination America stuff because I didn't have the channel. Um, my girlfriend at the time did, so I was able to kind of catch shows here and there, like when I stay with her. But um, I really didn't watch a whole lot of it. I've watched it on TNA Plus though, or not, whatever the app was before. I haven't watched it in a couple years. Whatever the previous app was, Impact Plus. But I remember when they had the debut on Pop. I remember just saying to myself, "This comes off like a knockoff of WWE." There was too many things that was like, again, like what I just said. We see WWE do this, so here's our version of it. And like stuff like Lockdown, Knockouts Knockdown. Let me not bring up the reverse battle royal, which they did bring that back a couple years ago, but things like that, King of the Mountain, that's what people want from TNA. That's what people were watching TNA. And now it's just um, it's a Philly street fight because the other fucking companies do a street fight named after the city. TNA has to do it too. There's just too much of like we see this company doing this. Here's our version of it. Here's our watered down version of it. When they rebranded to TNA, why didn't we get Lockdown? Why didn't we get Knockouts Knockdown? Why did we get? I think we did get a Queen of the Mountain, right? Was that this year? I think we might have had that this year. No, because Tasha Steelz won that, so I want to say it was a year before. I don't really know. But why aren't we getting those things that made TNA magical? We're just not. Dude, even though it was a one night only event, like Joker's Wild, which I thought Joker's Wild was a great concept. It was really really scripted, so they always sucked. But Joker's Wild and Queen of the Knockouts and like they just had the homecoming tournament they did a couple years ago, the mixed tag. Just just more of that kind of stuff. More of the stuff. At least Tony Khan takes chances of saying, "Okay, I'm going to do." I mean, he overkills it with tournaments and all this shit, but at least he's like trying. A Continental Classic might be a copy to the G1 a little bit, but I mean, at least he's like, "Let's just do something different." If it's bad, it's bad, but like, take a freaking chance. There's just not enough of that. I'm getting a little sick of the formula of, okay, every other week we need a street fight or no disqualification or whatever. Like Full Metal Mayhem, that's a unique match to TNA. That's one they bring out every so often. Um, I just want more of that. I want more of what made TNA TNA, but add a spin to it. I mean, be different. Don't live in the past, but just give us something else. We do still consistently get Ultimate X, which is a good thing. I think it's getting a little overdone at this point because we get several of them throughout the year. But just be contrarian. Stop. Who cares? You know, NWA is not the most popular promotion in the world, and I, as someone who's a fan of it, I do come and go. Much of it is because of the commentary, just like TNA. I mean, no wrestling company has good commentary except maybe like Ring of Honor. But a lot of it is the commentary. A lot of it is putting bingo hall wrestlers on TV. Okay. But Billy Corgan is on an island of one. He gives two shits what other people are doing. Like he really, if you watch the show, you can, and that's why we get the bingo hall wrestlers. So there's a bad side to that, but there are some creative concepts that he has come up with, or he gives TV time to someone that TNA would be afraid to give TV time to, or another company afraid to give TV time to. I always use Taylor Rising as an example. Like she's more of a standout there and is very good. She was a jobber in TNA. They just brought her in, looked at her. We can't do anything with you. Like Billy Corgan gives people chances, and Billy Corgan operates organically. To go back to what I was saying a little while ago, he actually books based off the reception of the crowd and who the crowd. He can tell the crowd likes and wants to see. He does not force anyone onto the show. TNA will force PCO into every single pay per view, even if he creatively has nothing to do with any of the matches going on. Billy doesn't force anything. He does. He has some bad ideas, but he has good ideas too. But he literally does not care what other companies are doing, and that's what I like about it. I like that he takes some chances. So more chances for TNA. That's what I want to see. But in summary, I don't want them to settle. I want them to keep wanting more and to keep being better. To trust your people, trust your guys and your girls instead of someone because of their resume. Build your own stars. I also said, tell me a story. Get away from the we're going to have good little wrestling matches with good little hands. Tell me a story. Book organically. Stop making promises to wrestlers that create issues with how you want to book a show and book a pay-per-view. Be contrarian. Be yourself. Don't do what others are doing just because you see them do it. Be different. Be TNA. Be the TNA that we fell in love with from the beginning. That's going to do it for me, folks. I think that's going to be my last podcast of 2024. Could be wrong. We'll see. If I come up with another idea, I might drop it on you guys. But for now, that's going to do it. 2025 right around the corner. Genesis right around the corner. Let's get it.